just get started and we can, hopefully folks will join in short order and can catch up. So I think the three of you have been on other, I know at least some of you have been on other webinars, but I'm Jen Zarnock with Columbia Land Trust, and I have Chris Parker with me. And so Chris will be monitoring the Q&A and chat. So if anything comes up, feel free to type in there. I just wanted to remind you all that we've been recording these, and so we have both sort of the big broad overview intro to Ouzel as well as the session on tracking property information, both the slides and recordings at that link there, and this is being recorded and we'll share this out as well. And today we, excuse me, we're going to talk about annual monitoring in Ouzel. And I think this is my shortest one yet. I made it just under 100 slides. So somehow there's still so much to talk about, even though this is a much more focused session. So I'll go through fairly quickly. I think that we'll have some time at the end for any questions, or if there's anything else that you want to see that we didn't cover or would be helpful for you, you can just let us know when we get to that point. So today we're going to talk a little bit, I just want to talk about what our annual monitoring needs are. We'll go through monitoring workflows. We'll talk a little bit about all of the components and then how we use projects to support us in that. And then I'll touch a little bit on planning monitoring in Ouzel and this cool standalone photo point tool that Chris has developed. So I thought I would just start off by grounding us in what our needs are as land trusts, right? We all have slightly different maybe protocols or procedures. We all have different property types, but in general, we're monitoring compliance with restrictions, whether that's a conservation easement or a fee property, and the restriction might be the conservation, maintaining conservation values, the management plan, maybe notices of grant agreement, et cetera, things like that. In my case, I have some that have other sort of leases on them where I have things that I want to remind myself to look for each year. So we also want to track issues and violations. For our purposes, and I think for many of yours, we really need a better way to store photos related to monitoring, and then something that can integrate really nicely with our records policy needs and help staff or volunteers or whoever's monitoring to have good guidance and sort of an easy process that helps remind them the steps that they're supposed to take for all of us. You know, some of us don't monitor all the time. And so we're going to go through monitoring at the property level. This is the level at which we do our annual compliance monitoring. And just as a reminder from the last session, so in Ouzel, the property is sort of this hub, right? It's an area that we manage as a unit. So it could be multiple or parts of acquisition projects, it could be multiple or parts of parcels, or individual one-to-one. So here's one of our properties at Follow Prairie. And this is just, again, that property dashboard. And just a reminder that our property types that we talked about last time, in this case, this is a natural area, can dictate the monitoring requirements that we have. Once we get to the project template, you'll see that a little bit more. So this is just showing, excuse me, this is our monitoring tab here. You can see these components, monitoring elements, photo points, and you see this photo points version 2 beta, which I'll show you today. So we're in the process of migrating to a new and improved photo points tool. And this is just showing you these workspaces as well as this getting to the reports. And so it's a little bit, it might be a little, hopefully it's not too overwhelming, but what I want to do first is look at all of the parts. So the different components in Ouzel that make up monitoring. And then in a couple minutes, we'll get to looking at how we use project templates to help structure and contain that. So monitoring elements we're going to look at now. And these are basically the things you want to monitor. So what's the stuff that you need to remember and be reminded of, or have folks reminded of as they're out in the field on the ground looking? And again, these can be based on restrictions. They could be based on other things. You might have some sort of ecological metric that you want to check on every year. You know, we tend to have sort of some broad like vegetation condition ones for our fee properties. And now, you know, just fairly recently, we have this cool time-based aspect to these where we can say, you know, this is something I just look at every year. We want to do the same set of metrics every year. Or you could have something that is more, you know, say every 5 years, I want to look at this. And so we initially set ours up all at 1 year. You can see that right here. Excuse me, right here. But, you know, we're in the process of sort of reviewing all of ours and seeing where we might change that. But the point is, these are super flexible. We'll look at the different types of data you can collect with elements and how you might tailor them to your monitoring. So, and we'll use our ours as an example, of course. So here we are. This is again at Follow Prairie. These are our monitoring elements for this site. And this is an example of just our kind of standard fee property monitoring elements. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to look at them. So this year, we have tasked all of our natural area managers, including myself, to go through and tailor these to the property. So we start with this sort of generic set, which, you know, many of them are great for all of our properties, but, you know, we have some sites that most of our sites don't have infrastructure, so we don't really need to have that one in there. Or maybe there's some other element that we need to be looking at on a particular property. And so we're going to ask folks to go in and tailor that. But point being, super flexible, super customizable, and intended to help you capture what you need. So this is just looking at the element detail pane, and you can see that there's this overview. You see this is linked to a restriction. So it's showing you the source, it's showing you the type. So I'll show you some other examples shortly. And then if we go to the next page, we can see here are our observations through time. I can see we have a new staff person who did this, and I've seen this with a few of our staff people where we're getting multiple observations. Multiple observations are totally fine. Probably wouldn't put 2 on one day. But you can see maybe he split it out intentionally because there's one aspect of it he thought there was a violation in this other part not. So you can see there's some check boxes for, is this an issue, potential issue? Is this just something that we should keep an eye on, or did we not observe any changes to this? If I, just to show you here. So while this will come through to our monitoring report template, I can go ahead and add observations right from here. So if I click that plus sign, I get this form, super quick form to fill out my observation. And here you can see this is our demo version of Ouzel, because unfortunately I don't have a property called garbanzo seed, although I wish I did. And so these are just some examples of different types. You can see down here, this is showing the type of element. So I just thought I would drop this in here to show you, here's an example of just a yes, no question. Were there changes, whatever your question might be, and then a place to add notes. We can also have a numeric type. So since Chris added this, I've been thinking about ways that we might use this maybe to track things like changes to impervious surfaces or building footprints over time. We do a tremendous amount of that with our ag easements where we have really intensive mapping needs every year and reserved rights around farming infrastructure that we need to track to make sure they're compliant with the conservation easement. And here's an example where it's just notes, hey, just make a narrative observation on this. So again, just showing the flexibility that we have on what you want to ask in your monitoring process. And I just wanted to quickly show, you know, you see this exclamation point here, you can click on that and quickly make an issue. So if there was some sort of issue or violation, you can just create your issue right off of that. And we'll dig into that much deeper in, I think, not the next session, but maybe in 2 or 3, depending on the order of that one's not scheduled yet, but it'll come up in short order. Okay, so those are the monitoring elements, a big chunk of monitoring, and now photo points. So just to start us off, Ouzel can track photo point spatial locations. So I just wanted to ground us in semantics. So we have our locations, our camera location, or our spatial location, or our photo point location, whatever semantics you use, and then the views, which we call photo points. So A, B, C, D, north, south, east, west. We want to be able to compare photos across years and add notes to the particular photo point. We really wanted something that would allow us to easily add photos to a report. So I don't know what y'all are doing, but it's been an evolution of, you know, pretty time-consuming photo processing. And with Ouzel, that's gotten much quicker. It's beautiful. We wanted to be able to have cloud storage. So we have our photos are all stored in the cloud, mobile functionality. And as I mentioned, we really needed to reduce processing time. So here is what you have seen in previous webinars. This is the photo point workspace, but as I mentioned, we're shifting to a new system. So I just wanted to show you this because you've seen this already, but this is the workspace that we're shifting to. And Chris is almost done putting the finishing touches on it. So I haven't actually used it to do monitoring yet, but it is a pretty cool improvement. So here you can see we still have the map on the right. We have our photos here in the middle, and then we have we're starting to build out some filters here. So we can look at years, we can compare across. We have these buttons across the top. So wherein those buttons correspond to different views. So here we are in this location view, and you can see I've gone ahead and clicked 2 years, and now that view has shifted so I can compare my photos across time. If I click on the map button, I just get a little bit more map. So if for some reason I'm working over here, it just gives me a little bit more space. You can see now if I click this, it would minimize a little bit more. And if I was to click on a particular point, and I'll acknowledge that the numbers are missing, but those will come right back in a hot minute, it would jump me to, you know, if I click on photo point 7, it'll jump me to that set of photos, which is pretty nice. Here we have a report view, so you can see that this is, it's not showing a header or anything, but this is stacked like it will be in a report. And I didn't unclick those, so it's actually showing you that you can have a report for multiple years if for some reason you wanted to generate that. And then here is a location view, and this is, in this instance, I have turned off the photo points, the pictures. So now I can just see the descriptions and information related to my specific photo points. If I click on the edit view, I get a view like this where I can just drag and drop photos into these individual buckets. A cool new thing about this version of the photo point workspace is that you can actually take your photos, drop them on the map, and if you have your directions, so if you've set up your photo points with the bearings for your photos, Ouzel will do its very best to match up your photo point views into the right buckets. And then anything that it can't match up, it'll put over here for you to drag into the right place. So it's a pretty awesome bit of robot assistance. And I'll show you a bit about that again at the end in the photo point tool, the different photo point tool. One thing that I would add is we'll look at mobile shortly. If we had gone out and taken photos in mobile and then come back to do more work on monitoring, those photos would just show up right here in this for this year, right? They'd already be in there. And then of course, once it's in, we can expand it, we can add notes. This nice new addition gives us the ability to look more deeply at the data, the GPS and EXIF data that just comes with the picture. You know, assuming that I think we have one staff person who occasionally uses an older phone that doesn't have GPS. And so we just have to train people out of that so we can take advantage of the data that comes with GPS enabled either cameras or phones or iPads, whatever you're using. Okay, and just so the other components when I think about monitoring and I think about landowner notification, access notification, any other notes that I might want to make, follow-up tasks that I might identify when I'm out in the field, additional photos that aren't photo point photos. I know a lot of us are moving away from taking the same set of photos every year. We need a place for those. We can put those in with our tasks. And then issues. So these are the other places, which if you watched were with us for the property information one, you saw all the spots where those can go. And I'm about to show you the same thing for mobile. So here we are with mobile. We looked at all those components. Let's look at it here. One note about mobile is that right now, and part of why I'm starting with the components is that we have the ability to do all of the components in mobile, but we don't yet have the project support that kind of helps walk you through. But that's coming very soon. So here we are in mobile, our mobile app. This is just showing you when you open it up, what you'll see. You can see I have one property added here. If I click on this gear, I get to it was much longer, 100 and something. But I can start to whittle down my list, click a little checkbox and update my properties. And then now I have access to whatever other property I want to add. And this is basically a mini Ouzel. So I'll have access to all of my key information, recent photos, issues, tasks, communications, contacts, etc. And so here is, I've gone into the Willow Grove Wetlands Mitigation Easement, and you can see those icons across the top, which correspond to most of our sort of tabs when you're on a desktop in a browser. And you see we just get a little bit of information right here. So here are the tasks. So as I mentioned, we can do all these pieces, right? We can do all the components related to monitoring in mobile. So here's my annual monitoring task. I can add my hours to it. I could add people. If I didn't have a task for this particular monitoring, I could just add it right here very easily. I can add any photos or just random photos that I'm taking that aren't photo point photos. Oh, if I wanted to create a planned task, so say there's something I want to follow up on. I'm not sure if you noticed that, but I'll go back for a second. You can see this is a work task, meaning there are hours associated with it. We've done something. We often call this work performed. And here, this is a plan task. So something that I want to note, what do I need to do? I might assign it to someone if I know. I might add a due date, etc. Here are our monitoring elements in mobile. So the same thing as those little boxes that I showed you, which Chris pointed out this morning, look like Monopoly cards, which is all I can think about now. So here we have our list of elements, and I can just click on an element. I can see the little summary information, the description. I can see recent observations. There's only one because this is a relatively new easement, so maybe I should have chose one that had more, but here we are. So there would be multiple years if it was a property that you've been monitoring for longer. And I can, just like in the desktop, go ahead and click add. Here's my new observation. This is our issues tab here, that exclamation point. This particular easement doesn't have any issues, but again, click the plus sign and I get my little issues form here. I can quickly add an issue in the field and then have it available to me when I'm back in the office. Here's an example of a different property where there is an issue. And I just wanted to point out that when we have issues in there and we're out, we can add tasks that are related to this issue. We can add notes related to this issue. So we can be checking on our stuff and adding notes or tasks related to those things all right from the field. And then here is our photo point space. So this over here. And I'll point out this eyeball was our observations. We have communications and notes here. But this is our photo points over here. So you can see, here's our list. If I click on into one here, I can see the most recent photo. I can take a photo. If I click on this little aperture icon here, it opens it up. I can click on take a photo. I can either upload something from my phone if I've already taken it, or I can go ahead and take a photo of a poorly lit cat last night and go ahead and add any notes and save it, and it's done. Here is our map icon. So I just wanted to show we have, and again, we'll add our numbers, but here is our photo point map. This is showing the unit, what we call our properties. And then this is actually also showing us adjacent properties, which is really nice. We have the ability to add tracks in our Ouzel mobile. So you can just go right in here and start recording your tracks and it'll track with you. As you're monitoring, you can pause it and then resume it as needed. And then we also, I just thought I'd quickly show this right here is showing the data layers. So these are the different things that you currently would have available to you to work on in Ouzel. Okay, so those are all sort of the components, and I didn't show you, I'm not sure why. We also, but I mentioned we also can add notes and communications right from the mobile app. Same sort of interface. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, excuse me, using project templates to customize monitoring and why we might do that. And so, you know, using the project really lets us sort of group and contain information. So I'm not sure why my bullets are off, but it'll let us go through and say, okay, these tests were done for this part. It lets us have dedicated dashboards. It lets us have customized workflows. So checklists, phases, instructions, and then these can be tailored by property type. So we can have different templates or a template that changes based on, is it an easement? Is it a fee? Is it some other type that has some other monitoring task that we need to do related specifically to that type of project, type of property. And then it lets us create customized reports. So while we can do all the elements just straight in Ouzel and in mobile, the project template lets us like check our, not have to keep the list of every single step that we need to do in our head all the time. We can put it in front of ourselves. And then also we can generate pretty reports and have everything kind of contained in the bucket of monitoring. So we'll look at our template. Of course, these are all customizable. So here's our monitoring dashboard. Again, it's customizable. These widgets can be different. And in fact, we need to maybe dedicate a little effort to thinking about what we really need here. But like the property dashboard, you see these tabs across the top into the different workspaces. The place that we do most of our work in the monitoring report, the monitoring report project, but I'll just call it the monitoring report, is this work tab right here. And then I just wanted to point out, you can see some other information up here. So this is a report from last year. You can see that it's completed. You can see the date that the project was done, or report if it spanned a long period of time. Actually, it looks like it started, that's a little bit of an error, but this should show a range of dates. This is showing the unit or property that it's associated with. So if I was here and I needed to go back to my property, I could click right there. And then this shows that I'm the lead for this, meaning I'm responsible to get this done, even if I assign it to someone else to do. And so we go into this work tab, and you can see this is a new one. I've opened the project on this date. It's in a plan status. And I haven't done anything on it yet. So you see our phases on the left. And so we used to just have it all, and it felt a little bit overwhelming, even though it's not a huge checklist like our acquisition due diligence checklist. It felt like it would be nice to break it into kind of the phases of work for monitoring, where we do a bunch of preparation before we go out in the field. The monitoring is mostly like field plus field data, and then what are our follow-up steps? but you also have the ability to look at it both ways, which is nice. The rows represent a task. So these are the checklist items, but really this represents a task. And you can see this is a deliverable here. So you can see this one doesn't have a deliverable because this is just a like checklist reminder. Did you do this? Don't forget to do this thing. But we don't need to ask the monitor to enter anything about that unless you want to. Like maybe you want to add a communication to just document that, but we felt like we didn't really need to for our folks. If I click on one, you can see I get over here this detail pane again. This is the deliverable. And so here I have an overview. I can assign this. I can, we could have set up our template with much more detailed information in here if it was something more involved, to give some instructions. And then this other tab here, if I click on that, I'm going to get the tool, the deliverable tool. So in this case, this is an easement property, so I need to notify the landowner in advance. And I can just drop my letter or PDF of my email or whatever right in here, put the contact, etc. I also have the ability to switch this form. So I clicked on this little arrow down here and changed this to, I'm sorry, I clicked on something down here, wrong thing, show simple inline form. And I can just create a message, a communication that's a message. And so, you know, say it's a landowner that I call, I don't need to write to them. I can go ahead and document that in whatever way makes sense. And if you are very strict that it must be written and it must be in a formal letter or, you know, a formal letter attached to an email, you can require that it's always that. It's, again, super flexible. Let's see. Also, these communications are entered here, but they'll also show up on the main property page communications. So while they're contained in this project for the purposes of this workflow, we have access to them in all the places, which is really nice when you go into your communications and you see like all the different touch points with folks related to your property. That is all included in there, which is nice. Similarly, here is the upload easement landowner questionnaire. We send out a questionnaire to our easement landowners in advance. Sometimes they answer it, sometimes they don't. We can just drop the response in there. Or again, we can switch this, and I think I showed a picture of this, so this is where we would click this little swap the tool to a note to say, we sent it, they didn't respond, just to be able to document that we tried. And I'm not going to go through every single one, but I'll show you sort of a smattering of tools so you get a sense of what's possible. So these are just the other things. Notify neighbors, again, no deliverable, review aerial imagery, just I think it gives you a little note. Oh, I wanted to show that you can pop this out. So this is that same note for the landowner questionnaire, but I'm just showing you that you can pop it out into a modal. So we have these sort of different ways that you can interact depending on what works best for your brain. And then this little arrow here, I've shown this before, gives us kind of like that map. You can make this detail pane bigger or smaller. So this is super handy, especially like working on a laptop with a smaller screen. On my giant monitor, it's totally fine to work in the narrower pane, but it gives us some flexibility there depending on what you're needing to do. This is just that notify one with no deliverable, but when I'm done, I just check this to say I'm done. It's going to say, are you sure you want me to close this? Yes, I'm sure. And then once I close it, it will mark this off, checked, and show me when it was done. Let's see. So this is another just note. So showing review the aerial imagery if there's any new imagery. This is an optional task because we don't always have new aerial imagery, but there's just a space to make any notes. And then this is a nice one. So if there are, so it's a reminder to review the prior monitoring reports and any issues. And so it's putting the issues in front of you. It's kind of on you to go look at the monitoring reports. You could choose to split those out if you wanted to split hairs. I think this is a good enough reminder for us for now. But this is a different property that does have issues, and it just gives you a space. Later, this will come up again where you can add any notes of observations, but this is just saying, okay, these are the open active issues I need to remember to go check on. And then here we've moved into the monitoring. So this is kind of the beef of the monitoring report. And you can see here's our checklist. We have these different steps. And again, recall most of this could be done from mobile. So here's our site visit. And this is a little funny because this is a task, a checklist item that's deliverable is asking you to either create or select a task, right? It's basically linking I went out and did the site visit task here. So this is showing me any open tasks that are available during this time. And I could click one, or I can go ahead and create a new task very easily. I select my activity code, and here we have this new task. I can put hours. I would be able to add other folks if they were out with me doing the monitoring as well. And then now I have my information. We also have a little field in here for start and end time. And what you're seeing there is additional photo points. So just show this again. Here it's showing files, but here, oops, sorry, y'all. Oh, it's not going to show it. You can kind of see it in the background here that there's this additional photos. So once you have selected your task there, you get this bucket where you can just dump your additional photos in. And then this is how they show up in Ouzel. And so these are anything that's not photo point photos. And our plan is that these will get pulled out into their own separate checklist item, but for some, Ouzel backend reasons, that's just a next step. But for now, like any task that you can add photos to, that's just where we add them as part of that checklist item. This is a nice one for easements. Is there a new landowner? Just a prompt. So yes or no. And then if yes, it prompts you to add their contact information. And then here is our monitoring elements. And this is where those elements, all of our Monopoly cards come in. And so they're just stacked here with the ability to go through and answer them, right? Answer the questions, enter your observations. And then this is how, like, once you've done that, how it shows up. So you can see no management concerns, no violations. I keep trying to scroll. And then any notes that we've added. This is our inspection level. So we track our inspection level and method each year. We, a few years ago, moved to sort of levels, and we struggled for a little bit with what we were going to call that level 1 or 2. And now we came to comprehensive or other, and then we have definitions for what that means. And so we're tracking each year what level is happening so that we make sure that every 3 years, every site gets a comprehensive monitoring visit. And here is where our photo points come in. So same thing. Here are our photo points. It's hard to see just because this map takes up a fair bit of space, but you get this bucket, you drop your photo in, you move to the next one, you drop your photo in. Sort of a beautiful, easy way to just get your pictures in there. And then, excuse me, there's a space right in there to add any notes that you want to add. And this is just showing that that view once you've entered them and completed this. Where no notes provided, you get a little bit of information, really similar to that report view that we looked at in the photo point workspace, but just bringing it into the project template so that you have access to it as you're going through this workflow. Oh, and then I think I just wanted to touch on landowners, neighbors, and the public. This is just for us a place to put notes if you had any interaction. And again, that could be split out. You could have one that was specific to easements that was about landowners, and you could have one that was neighbors and the public. But they both apply. Everything but landowners applies to everything. Neighbors and the public can apply to easements or fee. So we just kept it together. It's fine, but we might split that out later. Other comments is just another comments field. Monitoring recommendations. This is a note that where you would say, oh, hey, next year, don't forget to do X, Y, and Z, or you might want to think about this. And those actually come through also to the notes on the property page. So it's something that you have access to even outside of the report. And then those follow-up tasks that I mentioned. So just tasks that you're saying, hey, I want to remember to do this. Which frankly, our follow-up tasks used to be things like follow up with the landowner, which, is now part of our checklist. So we've taken some of those things that are just like, this is all part of the monitoring. These tasks are in this project and we know how to do them here. And so follow up would be something different, if there's other tasks, additional tasks to do other than like send the easement landowner follow-up letter, if that makes sense. And then this is just sort of the finalizing step. So we have a review task in here, and our procedure is that if anyone other than the lead or natural area manager, which now is the same for all of our properties, the same person, does the monitoring, then the natural area manager reviews it. And so that lets us just say, yes, if it's not me, I need to look at it. And then once we do, we just can approve it so that, and add any, of our own notes or changes. It's so just a little bit of a reminder. And when we say yes, then it'll assign it. We can assign it to that person. So they are sort of prompted to say, oh, I need to go review Sonoy's photo or monitoring report. Because this is an easement, I have the follow-up with the easement landowner communication. So same as that pre-notification, this is our post. And then we have this other one that's any follow-up with partners or co-holders. And this again is one that we want to filter out in the future and keep only for properties that it's required for. And so we're developing a method to do that so that we're not seeing extra steps and we don't have to know, I need to do this or I don't need to do this. But the template is really helping us know, oh, shoot, this is a property where I have a co-holder and I have to send them a letter and my monitoring report after I'm done monitoring. So coming soon. Once all of our steps are done, we can finalize our reports. We have this reports tab right here. You can see some of the stuff here where we're constantly improving things. And so Chris has been cranking to get some of these new report improvements in here, which is awesome. So it's just pretty soon, there'll be one method, but right now there's two. You can see we've added this way to sign. So you've done your report, it's all reviewed. You've checked this box, it's going to drop the monitor's signature in there, and you can go ahead and it will save a PDF to Ouzel and allow you to download it to save on your server. And again, you can see the old method, new method. So this is showing what the PDF looks like. So just got a PDF, it's saved in Ouzel, and we can bring it down. And it's the same thing with a photo report. I just wanted to show that example. It's really nice. It's coming in. We have a lot more control over the reports now. So you can't see this on the big screen, but you can kind of see over here, we can add headers and footers now, and we can make fancier reports. And then this is just, I wanted to show you that those additional photos that we put in the site visit task at the beginning get appended after the photo points. So if you didn't take any photo points, you'll just have additional photos come up. But they're also in the photo report, so it becomes one package. And then this, I just wanted to show off that we can customize. So this is our list of deliverables, and those that have a checkbox are the ones that are required. So I wanted to show that off, that we can really customize that, and then just also remind you that the phases are customizable, the checklists. So whatever works for your organization, whatever your monitoring sort of checklist is, can be added here very easily. And I think, Chris, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think mostly what's happening with users now is that they've kind of adopted ours and they're playing with it and seeing if they need to modify it at all. Okay, so that's how I do a monitoring report. But I wanted to talk a little bit about planning and tracking, because one of the things we really wanted in Ouzel was the ability to stop having all these multiple spreadsheets. Like I used to have this crazy, when I used to coordinate all of our monitoring, crazy, conditionally formatted, pivot tabled spreadsheet tracking, where was each report at in its lifetime and who was doing it and was it going to get done. So here is, this is just showing, remember that pull down here for monitoring reports, this is showing for at a given property level, all of the reports through time. You can see this one, this year's report is planned but not completed. So it of course doesn't have a visit date yet. So need to schedule that. And I can see at a glance the key information about old reports. You'll notice that we don't have levels here because we migrated this data in from another system where we weren't tracking that. So, but I could go back and adjust that and then have this great picture. Or if I was starting at 0 in Ouzel, then I would have this really beautiful picture over time. And then this is showing that same view, but at the global scale. So this is showing all of our annual monitoring reports, everything over time. And then you can, for all of our properties, and you can see, I can do some filtering here. I would have the ability to make some reports. I could print, I could download, etc. Whoop. Was that right? Yes, sorry, I have a crazy mouse that if I touch wrong, sometimes moves forward on me. This is cool. This is a new, like as of yesterday, new dashboard for our annual monitoring reports. So we've been working on getting these planning tools in there. And this is showing all of our projects for this year. So at this point, a sort of a project shell has been created for every property that requires monitoring in the current year, which for us is basically everything except for a few properties that we just don't monitor for various reasons. And then here on the right, you can see the tasks. So what we did is, you know, it wasn't January 1st, it was April 13th, but next year it will be January 1st. Ouzel creates all the projects. Ouzel creates all of the site visit tasks, the monitoring tasks. And then what we can do is go through and assign them. So right now they're automatically assigned to the lead for the property that they were created for. So you can see Dan has ownership over these properties. These are his annual compliance monitoring tasks for the year. And he can go through, if he's not going to do the monitoring, and assign it to other staff people or you know, if he was going to do volunteers. We're not doing that right now, but he could. We also can then, you know, this is showing my annual monitoring tasks and say, and I have a separate list of who's doing what. So I can go through now in Ouzel and batch assign them, saying, okay, Sonoy is going to take these, Helen's going to do these I'm keeping, I'm going to do them, etc. And so this is really bringing us to a picture of being able to plan the work, do the work, track the work all in Ouzel, where we can all see it and we don't have to remember, like, where did we put that spreadsheet? Is it, you know, especially now, is it on the server? Is it in SharePoint? Is it squirreled away on someone's OneDrive? Was it a Google document? You know, I feel like we're in this flux of communication with remote work, and really we should be doing all of that in here. And so we've been building those tools, and I think it's going to be pretty awesome. I wanted to show this because this is showing our monitoring projects. And so this is for this year, shows all of those shells of created, planned projects, shows us that we have 18 in progress and one we've done, one is all the way done. There's a bunch more that are almost done, but need some review. And then this is just a different view of that same widget showing, you know, we can take, now that we have both the tasks and the projects, we can roll them up in different ways and display them in different ways, and you know, really have our finger on the pulse of monitoring, which is beautiful. I also wanted to, I got to speed it up. I also wanted to touch on records policy. So I'm not sure about all y'all, but you know, for years we've been talking about how do we move towards more of a digital records policy, you know, this sort of like triplicate, and one thing goes to like this weird location in a basement and a fireproof safe, and one goes here and one goes there, is cumbersome, and it's especially cumbersome when we're not all in the office. And what it would manifest in is like stacks of things that were supposed to go offsite that like eventually someone would take offsite, which is a terrible procedure. So pretty quickly early on in the pandemic, we shifted our monitoring to be totally digital. So we use Ouzel as our offsite storage. We changed our records procedures to reflect that. And now we have, we put a copy on our server, and there's Ouzel. And so it really has helped with that. And I think we'll be continuing to look at parts of our records policy for different elements of how we can use Ouzel to support us in that. There are flexible storage options. So it means that Ouzel can track files that are located in multiple places. So if you have, your SharePoint or your Google Drive, or, we store our stuff in Amazon Cloud, it can connect to those things. And yeah, so I just wanted to touch on that. I just want to also quickly touch on this. So this is coming very soon. Chris has built this. You'll see it looks pretty familiar to what's in Ouzel. I mean, it is, but it is also a standalone photo point tool where you drop your image or images directly on a map. It's also automatically going to create photo points for you. And then, like I showed you in the other one, if there's ones that it can't, it'll put them over here for you to drop in. This is a free tool. It automatically will create you a report and export your images, PDF and location data in a zip. So it's all done online. It's totally free. It's not going to save any of your data. So if it's something that you just want to use to play with, you can we can share that when it's available. And it'll maybe start to give you a sense of some of the functionality that's in Ouzel. But if you want to be able to save your stuff over time, then you need to, sign up and use that functionality in our system. But pretty cool. What else? That's it. Okay, we did it. We have about 11 minutes. So let's see. Questions. Chris answered 3 questions. And no, the map. Right. Okay. So those maps are showing data, as Chris said, that we store in Ouzel, but we can link to all kinds of data. One of the things that we're working on right now at Columbia Land Trust is sort of defining and writing up the things that are where Ouzel is going to be primary, or what's the word that I'm thinking of? I can't think of the word, but the primary source, authoritative, that's the word, or where it's something that's more complicated that we're going to mostly want to create in ARC, and then how do we link those together in the best way. My goal is to have us as much as possible doing things that make sense in Ouzel, so that we're not going into Ouzel doing our work and then having to open up ArcMap or ArcGIS Online and do a separate workflow there. We should bring those together wherever we can. So both in the property dashboard where I saw Google Map and the app, we would just be able to decide what map. Sorry, I'm just reading Chris's answer. Yeah, so mapping is something that we could all work through. And it's just a matter of determining your sources. Anything else? Any other questions that folks have, or things that you want to see? We have a couple minutes if you wanted me to pop open Ouzel Live and show off anything that maybe we didn't cover in enough depth. You can just let me know. And if not, then we can wrap it up. Where's one other, let's see. Okay, so we have one more scheduled webinar on tasks and work being tasks that have hours, on the 28th. And then those other ones we just have to schedule. We haven't done that yet. And we're also going to try to be rolling out some maybe shorter little tutorial clips that we can throw up on the website, to just give some, so you don't have to always dedicate an hour, but you could kind of get little glimpses at things. So all of that is coming as soon as I get a couple of grant reports done that are grossly overdue. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We're always happy to talk about Ouzel. we can always schedule a deeper demo for your organization specifically. And I think that's it. Thanks for coming. I don't see any other questions. And I am going to stop.